Imagine waking up every day with a sense that you're moving forward, checking boxes, advancing your career, increasing your productivity, upgrading your devices, optimizing your time. But deep down, something feels off. You keep achieving, but you're not arriving. You keep improving, but you're not transforming. You keep moving, but you're not going anywhere. It's as if you're running on a treadmill in a room with no windows, exhausted by motion yet surrounded by stillness. Progress, it seems, has become an illusion we chase, not a truth we live. Look around. You live in a time when you can measure your heart rate with a wristwatch, monitor your steps, schedule your entire week from your phone, and receive a dopamine hit from a single click. You are more connected, more informed, more enabled than ever before. And yet, statistically, you are also more anxious, more isolated, more medicated, and more uncertain of your place in the world than any previous generation. Why? Why is it that with all this momentum we still feel stuck? Why, with all this progress, do we feel increasingly lost? There's a silent crisis growing beneath the facade of modern life. It's not a crisis of technology, it's not even a crisis of values, it's a crisis of meaning. You've been told that progress means becoming faster, smarter, wealthier, more efficient, but you were never told what it means to become wiser. You were taught how to climb ladders, corporate, social, digital, but never how to question whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. You were taught how to be successful, but not how to be whole. And so we live in a strange paradox. The world tells you that everything is improving, more convenience, more options, more control. But inside, you may feel a growing emptiness, a strange hollowness that no new upgrade or external achievement can fix. This is the illusion of progress. It looks like motion. It feels like achievement. But it often masks stagnation, emotional, spiritual, existential. It's not that you aren't doing things. It's that the things you're doing aren't touching the depth of who you are. They aren't healing your wounds. They aren't answering your questions. They aren't helping you remember who you truly are beneath the roles, the routines, the relentless productivity. What if the progress we celebrate is actually keeping us asleep? What if the systems we trust, education, economics, culture, are teaching us how to perform, but not how to live? What if every next step is just another distraction from the only real question that matters? What is all this movement for? We live in a society obsessed with outcomes. We want results, data, evidence of growth. But growth in what direction? If you plant a seed and it grows downward into rot, is that still growth? If your ambition costs you your joy, your relationships, your sense of self, is that still success? If we've gained everything and forgotten ourselves, what exactly have we won? You are not a machine. You are not an algorithm. You are not a project to be optimized. You are a soul, longing not just for answers, but for truth. Not just for motion, but for meaning. And maybe, just maybe, the most dangerous lie modern life tells you is this: that you are making progress, when in truth, you are standing still. But how did we get here? Why do we keep running toward something that never arrives? And what would it even look like to stop chasing the illusion and start seeking what's real? Progress on the surface is seductive. It flatters the ego. It gives us the illusion of mastery, of forward motion, of escaping the chaos behind us. But underneath that motion is often something darker, quieter, and more insidious. Avoidance. We don't pursue progress because we're whole. We pursue it because we're afraid of what we'll find in stillness, to sit in silence, to stop striving, to ask, who am I truly? That's terrifying. Because in that moment, you are no longer performing, you are no longer advancing, you are simply facing yourself. And for many, that's more unbearable than failure. Carl Jung wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." The modern world has weaponized this avoidance. It gives you endless escape routes. New goals, new gadgets, new apps, new identities. A revolving door of distractions that feel like growth. But what if progress is just our culturally sanctioned way of running from the void? We don't fear stagnation, we fear confrontation, confronting our emptiness, our unhealed wounds, our uncertainty about why we do what we do. And so we keep moving, not because it fulfills us, but because it protects us from asking the harder question, what if the life I've built is not aligned with who I truly am? In existential psychology, this condition is well known. Viktor Frankl called it the existential vacuum, a condition of inner emptiness, masked by outer activity. People fill their lives with busyness to avoid confronting meaninglessness. And so what appears on the outside as success, promotions, productivity, perfectly curated lives, often conceals a deeper form of spiritual malnourishment. We mistake activity for aliveness. We mistake goals for purpose. We mistake distraction for peace. But true progress is not outward expansion, it's inward integration. Let's return to Jung for a moment. He spoke of the individuation process, the journey toward wholeness. It is not about ascending toward perfection. It's about descending into the shadow, reclaiming all the parts of yourself that were disowned, buried, repressed in your quest to be good, successful, or normal. But our modern model of progress has no room for that kind of descent. Descent looks like regression. It looks like failure. It looks like emotional messiness. And so we label it as weakness. This is where philosophy collides with pathology. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." But what if you have no why? What if your why was chosen for you by your culture, your parents, your algorithm? Then your how becomes unbearable. You wake up in the middle of a life you don't recognize, chasing dreams that never belonged to you. And here lies the hidden problem. We've outsourced our purpose to systems that profit from our confusion. Your sense of progress is now defined by how much you produce, how well you market yourself, how efficiently you self-regulate to remain valuable in a system that never asked what you truly value. Modernity has mastered the art of hollow achievement. We are now rewarded not for being authentic, but for being effective, not for being present, but for being productive, not for being wise, but for being visible. What do you think grind culture is? It's not just a work ethic, it's a worldview, a belief system that tells you, if you're not exhausted, you're not valuable. If you're not moving, you're not worthy. If you're not climbing, you're falling. So we attach our identity to metrics. We become our resumes, our follower counts, our analytics dashboards. And in the process, we lose the thread of what it means to be human. Progress, once a means of serving life, has become a replacement for life. But the human psyche can't be fooled forever. Sooner or later, something breaks. A burnout, a breakdown, a quiet, creeping dread that no achievement can silence. And in that rupture, something ancient awakens. The soul, the self, the deep inner knowing that this is not enough. You start to see through the illusion. You realize you've been climbing someone else's mountain, building someone else's dream, living someone else's life. But this isn't failure. This is the beginning of awakening. You were never meant to conform to systems that deny your soul. You were never meant to measure your life in metrics. You were never meant to trade your depth for efficiency. You were meant to question, to feel, to remember. Remember who you were before the world told you who to become. But before that remembering can begin, you must confront the full cost of the illusion, the toll it has taken on your mind, your body, your relationships, your very sense of being. And that's what we explore next. You don't always notice the moment the illusion begins to shape you. It doesn't announce itself with alarms or red flags. It doesn't come with warnings or consequences at first. It seduces you slowly, silently, like a fog creeping under your door in the middle of the night. You think you're making progress, but what's really happening is far more subtle and far more dangerous. You're becoming mechanical. Bit by bit, your days are no longer lived. They're managed. Your feelings are no longer felt. They're suppressed. Your soul is no longer expressed. It's optimized. You move from task to task, goal to goal, upgrade to upgrade, thinking that each new step will finally bring you the fulfillment you've been promised. But the closer you get, the more distant it feels. This is the first consequence: emptiness dressed in accomplishment. You may have a full calendar, but an empty heart. You may achieve your goals, yet feel no joy when you do. You may build a life of success and still wake up wondering, why does none of this feel real? Because the treadmill doesn't stop. The metrics reset. The algorithm always wants more. And in the pursuit of progress, you become disconnected from the one thing that can't be measured: meaning. You see it in the workplace. People burned out not because they work hard, but because their work feels meaningless.
You see it in social media. People obsessed with growth, not of character, but of reach. You see it in relationships. People mistaking compatibility for performance, partnership for efficiency. We've adopted the language of systems and forgotten the poetry of being. And this is the second consequence: dehumanization. You begin to treat yourself like a machine. You speak to yourself in metrics. You judge yourself by output. You pathologize your need for rest. You feel guilty for slowing down, even for breathing. And over time, your inner world starts to dry out. No wonder anxiety is epidemic. No wonder depression feels so widespread. No wonder so many walk through life with a quiet, persistent ache they can't explain. We were not built to live this way. The human psyche was not designed for constant acceleration. It was not built to endlessly compete. It was not wired for a world that confuses movement with growth. Neurologically, your brain thrives on cycles of rest and renewal. Spiritually, your soul yearns for depth, not speed. Emotionally, you are wired for connection, not optimization. But modern life tells you otherwise. And this creates a third, devastating consequence: self-alienation. You begin to distrust your own inner signals. Tired? You must be lazy. Uninspired? You must be ungrateful. Depressed? Try harder. Do more. Push through. The system has no room for nuance. No tolerance for ambiguity. No patience for the sacred slowness of human unfolding. And so you become a stranger to yourself. You smile when you feel nothing. You perform wellness instead of experiencing it. You post affirmations while your inner world crumbles in silence. The illusion of progress demands that you appear whole even if you're falling apart. It demands that you always be moving even if the direction is hollow. And the cost of this illusion is profound. Relationships become transactional. Art becomes content. Spirituality becomes branding. Healing becomes another task on the to-do list. And life itself becomes performance. But here's the final, and perhaps most tragic consequence: the death of stillness. When was the last time you sat with yourself, not to fix anything, not to plan, not to strategize, but simply to listen? When was the last time you walked without purpose? Spoke without agenda? Created without outcome? We've forgotten how to be. We think slowing down is failure. We think reflection is indulgent. We think presence is a luxury. But it's not. Presence is the only thing that's real. And until you return to it, until you reclaim your right to stillness, you will remain trapped in the illusion, working harder, achieving more, and yet feeling less alive. This is not a personal failing. This is a systemic distortion. It's not that you're broken. It's that you've been trained to chase a version of progress that was never designed to nourish your soul. But what if there's another way? What if the truest kind of growth isn't forward, but downward? Not up the ladder, but into the roots? Not more, but deeper? What if you don't need to become anything else, just remember who you already are beneath all the noise? This isn't about rejecting progress. It's about reclaiming its original meaning, movement in service of truth, not illusion. And to do that, you must rebel. Imagine, for a moment, stepping off the conveyor belt. Not slowing down. Stopping. No more optimization. No more endless upgrades. No more proving your worth in likes, promotions, or efficiency. Just you, and the silence that follows. At first, it feels like death. The death of movement. The death of identity. The death of the persona you spent your entire life crafting. But what if that death is the beginning of real life? In a culture obsessed with becoming, rebellion begins with being. Truly being. With all your fears, doubts, contradictions, and desires. This is not a glamorous revolution. It's not about quitting your job, deleting social media, or moving to the mountains, though for some, that might be necessary. This rebellion is internal. It begins with seeing clearly. Seeing the lie. Seeing how you've been conditioned to equate busyness with meaning. How you've learned to fear stillness because it might reveal the emptiness you've avoided for years. How you've mistaken your persona, that carefully curated image, for your true self. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But becoming who you are doesn't come from adding more, it comes from removing what you are not. This is the rebellion, subtraction over addition. Remove the false beliefs. The inherited goals. The narratives that say, you must be more to be worthy. Strip yourself of the roles that no longer fit. Let the ego crumble where it must. Dare to be naked psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. This is the path of descent. Not toward regression, but toward integration. Because you cannot build true progress on a false foundation. Ask yourself. Who taught you what success means? Who defined your metrics? Whose voice echoes in your mind when you feel behind? Is it yours? Or is it the voice of a system that profits from your insecurity? Your liberation begins when you stop asking, "Am I ahead?" and start asking, "Am I aligned?" Aligned with what? With truth. With your values. With the rhythm of your own soul. This is not passive surrender. It's active rebellion. Because to slow down in a speeding world is a revolutionary act. To prioritize depth in a shallow culture is an act of defiance. To listen to your soul in a society built on noise is the beginning of awakening. Let's ground this. Practical rebellions of the modern soul. Unplug strategically. Not to escape, but to reclaim your attention. Every time you disconnect from engineered distraction, you're telling your brain, you are no longer for sale. Redefine progress. Ask yourself daily, is this movement taking me closer to my truth or further from it? If it's not in service of your deepest values, it's not growth, it's escape. Create without performance. Write. Paint. Speak. Not for likes, not for reach, but because the act itself reconnects you with something real inside you. Sit in silence. Even just 10 minutes a day. Not with an app, not with a goal, just you and the raw space of your inner world. That's where the illusions start to crack. Grieve the false self. Let yourself mourn the life you thought you were supposed to want. You were lied to. And your healing begins when you stop pretending you weren't. These acts are simple, but they're not easy. Because you will feel resistance. You will feel fear. You will feel the tremble of the ego, begging you to return to the safety of illusion. But each time you say no to illusion, you say yes to truth. Each time you slow down, you give your soul a chance to speak. And that voice, quiet, steady, ancient, has been waiting for you. This rebellion also requires you to reclaim one powerful truth: you are not a machine. You were not born to produce endlessly. You were not created to optimize your personality into a product. You are not a brand. You are not a metric. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to live. To feel deeply. To move slowly. To break sometimes. To heal. To wonder. To remember what it means to be human. This, too, is progress. Maybe the real progress isn't in doing more, it's in undoing. Unlearning the lie. Unhooking from the trance. Unraveling the performance. Until what remains is something fierce and quiet and real. Until you no longer measure your life by how fast you're moving, but by how true you feel in the stillness. And that brings us to the deepest truth of all. You've been running your whole life. Not just through the world, but through yourself. Through your fears. Through your doubts. Through the haunting silence that follows every moment you're not distracted. But here, at the edge of exhaustion, something breaks. Not you. The illusion. The illusion that progress is always forward. That becoming better means becoming faster, stronger, more productive. That your value is measured by your output. That peace comes only after you've earned it. What if that was never true? What if you were never meant to outrun your brokenness, but to sit with it? What if healing was less about ascending, and more about descending? Into the body. Into the breath. Into the buried, abandoned parts of you that progress told you to ignore? The final truth is this. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not broken. You are simply buried. Beneath layers of noise and programming and performance. Beneath stories that weren't yours. Beneath identities you wore just to survive. And real progress is remembering. Not becoming someone new. But returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But you can't find your why on a productivity chart. You won't stumble on it halfway through a 10-step morning routine. And no app will whisper it to you at 3 a.m. when your soul can't sleep. You find it in the wreckage. You find it when you stop running. When you sit among the ruins of everything you thought would save you, career, fame, validation, and realize none of it could touch the longing. Because the longing was never for more. It was for real. The real isn't glamorous. It doesn't trend. It doesn't come with dopamine spikes or social status. It comes in the quiet moment when you finally say, I'm done performing. Done pretending you're okay when you're not. Done chasing someone else's dream. Done living in exile from your own soul. This moment, this choice to stop chasing and start listening, is the real beginning. And it feels like falling at first. Because you no longer have the illusion to hold you up. No more achievements to hide behind. No more performance to protect you. Only truth. Raw. Unfiltered. Alive. You cry for the first time in years and realize that even your sadness is sacred. You speak your truth and feel the tremble in your voice and honor it. You stop numbing, stop escaping, and let the emptiness speak, and in that silence, something stirs. Not comfort. But clarity. The clarity that everything you were looking for out there was always waiting in here. Progress isn't the journey outward. It's the journey inward. Not through success, but through surrender. Not by winning, but by waking up. And what you find in that awakening isn't perfection. It's wholeness. Not as the world defines it, but as your soul remembers it. Messy. Contradictory. Full of shadow and light. Tears and laughter. Grief and joy. All of it welcome. All of it sacred. Because now you understand. You weren't meant to transcend your humanity. You were meant to embody it. To feel it fully. To live it honestly. To hold your brokenness without shame and your beauty without arrogance. You were meant to be whole, not flawless. And once you see that, once you truly feel it, not intellectually, but in your bones, the illusion collapses. You can still move. You can still grow. You can still build. But now, it's not about proving anything. Now, it's about alignment. With what matters. With what's true. With what makes your soul come alive when no one is watching. This is what progress was always meant to be. Not a race. Not a climb. But a homecoming. Back to the self. Back to the sacred. Back to the stillness that never left you, it just got buried beneath the noise. And when you return to that place, you no longer need to chase meaning. You become it. Every breath. Every pause. Every moment of presence is now infused with something real. This isn't the end of your journey. It's the first step of the only one that ever mattered.